Good afternoon, everyone. As Jackie stated, my name is Brittany Mason, and I'm an attorney with the Department of Procurement Services. The department would like to thank you for taking time out this afternoon. I know it's late to go over doing business with the city. The first slide that we have here covers a couple different areas that we're going to go over today. The first being the mission statement of procurement, the laws governing our actual procurement process, procurement terms that you may have heard, and types of procurement, certification that we have. Mind you, certification is also a workshop in and of itself. Contract monitoring and compliance, our programs and bid incentives, that is also a workshop in and of itself. Where you can find things on our website, and then last but not least, it's going to be question and answers. Our mission statement, we are actually the contracting authority for the procurement of goods and services for the city of Chicago, and that is very important. Some other departments have some procurement authority, but not as wide of authority as the chief procurement officer has. And if their authority is not specifically granted under the municipal code, they have to go through the chief procurement officer. We pledge to work together as a team and work with our customers to guarantee an open, fair, and timely process by establishing, communicating, and enforcing superior business practices. Integrity, public trust, and the law are the principles that guide our procurement process. The authority by which we procure things, the first authority is the Municipal Purchasing Act. That's found at 65 ILCS, stands for Illinois Compiled Statute 58-10-1. That's a state statute that governs procurement, and under the state statute, we have the Municipal Code of Chicago. It's Section 292 of that code that governs our purchasing as well. The procurement terms. DPS is going to provide you with a checklist when you have a bid package in the very beginning. That checklist will identify all those things that must be submitted with your bid or response in procurement. You should be sure to read that checklist thoroughly to ensure that you're providing all the documents that are requested. Not only those items on the checklist, but you also want to read whatever contracting documents they give you thoroughly, because those documents may require additional documentation that are not included on this checklist. Procurement terms. Some of you may have heard of these terms before, but the first term is contract. That is the written agreement between the city and the vendor for the provision of goods and or services to the city by the vendor. There are a number of different forms of contracts that we have. We have professional services agreements. We have commodities agreements. We have work services agreements. We have construction agreements. We have architectural and engineering agreements, and so forth. There's what you call a bid package. That's the set of documents that the city issues to solicit bids for these goods and services. And then we have the term addendum. Addendum is when we change the city's requirements, when we go out with our invitation to bid. The actual requirements of that bid changes, and requests for qualifications or also in requests for proposals. Addendums will be issued by procurement to everyone who has picked up a bid package, or if you're in the e-procurement system, which is iSupplier, everyone who is registered in that system for that particular bid or proposal. An amendment or modification, however, is a document which formally changes the terms and conditions of the actual contract. There are several forms of amendments to contracts. One form that you won't often see called an amendment or modification, but it is known as a change order, and you'll see those in construction contracts. Bids. The majority of the city's contracts are awarded through a competitive bidding process. If it's not adaptable to competitive bidding, then you will see it as an RFP, RFQ. Request for proposal is what an RFP is. It's a form of competitive procurement that's typically used to solicit proposals to implement a new project requiring professional services. An RFQ stands for Request for Qualifications, which is a form of competitive procurement that's used to solicit qualifications for vendors who possess a high degree of technical expertise and knowledge in specific disciplines. The RFQ, the vendor would submit its qualifications, and generally the city would deem whether or not that vendor is qualified. You usually see a pool of individuals when you see an RFQ. The types of procurement: we have small orders, we have competitive bids, requests for proposals and qualifications as previously mentioned, and then we have job order contracts. The small orders is to procure goods or services that are less than $100,000. There's no formal bid requirements or public advertisement required for small orders. Quotes may be solicited by telephone, fax, or written quotation posted on procurement's website. The City of Chicago certified MBE, WBE vendors are the first to be solicited. And MBE, WBE compliance required are actually required for those bids that are under $100,000 but over $10,000. Competitive bids. This is what you will normally see. We have pre-bids. The pre-bid conference is optional. It's not mandatory, but it's highly recommended because if you have questions about the bidding process, questions about the solicitation, questions about e-procurement, this is where those questions would be answered. There's a review of the specification as provided here. They address concerns regarding the specification. You can ask questions and answers, and those questions and answers may actually end up resulting in an addendum, as we previously defined, or a clarification. And a clarification, that would just be you have a question, the city clarified it, but no terms would change in the solicitation document itself. Competitive bids, pre-bids. If there is not a pre-bid meeting, bidders are encouraged to review the specification and contract documents during the bid solicitation period and contact the Department of Procurement Services contract administrator identified in the bid advertisement. You will see that on the first page of the document. You shouldn't be able to miss that particular procurement specialist's name regarding any questions that you may have about the bid documents. You should fill in all required information that the bid documents ask for. Certain bid documents must be submitted and executed with the bid. If not, the bid can be rejected. Please pay close attention to your specification because it will tell you if certain information is not submitted, your bid will be rejected. You always must sign and execute the document and have it notarized. That is grounds for rejection. Bid submittal. Bid and bond or deposit may be required for some of our bids, but that bid bond will not exceed 10% of the actual amount of the contract, and it has to be accepted in the proper form. Cash is not a proper form. Bids have to be timely on the bid opening date. That is a requirement in the state statute. Bid openings. The bid opening days, Monday through Friday, no major holidays. Time, 11 a.m. normally. Location, City Hall, Bid and Bond Room 103, where we currently are. Bids are opened on the opening date. They are read out loud. The bids are tabulated. The tabulation and bid documents are reviewed to make sure that your document is accurate and that is complete. Your bid tabulations can be viewed online on procurement's website 24 hours after the bid has been opened. Award process. A determination is made regarding the bidder's responsiveness and responsibility. If you look at the award section of your bid documents, it will say this bid will be awarded to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. Responsiveness meaning that you provided everything that you were required to provide in the solicitation. Responsible means that you're actually qualified to perform the services. There is a recommendation of award. Any acceptable bids are packaged. The bid and contract documents are routed through our signature and approval process. The contractor's performance and payment bonds, insurance, and funding agency concurrence for award, if applicable, are also obtained. When they say funding agency concurrence, some solicitations are federally funded, which means that you have to have some concurrence from those funding agencies, or they're passed through funds to state agencies. The contract awarded, it will be awarded, as I said before, to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder meeting all the city specifications. Request for proposal. This is the method used to solicit proposals to implement a new project requiring professional services. It's used when the city doesn't have in-house technical experts to perform these services or the resources to implement certain projects. The RFP will define the project objectives and scope of services, but is not going to provide every detail aspect of implementing the project. Basically, that's up to the vendor that's submitting their proposal. The city will ask questions like, this is what we want to do. How do you propose you're going to do it, and at what price? In addition to some other information that the RFP outlines. The evaluation process is a very detailed process done by an evaluation committee based on criteria stated in the RFP. And in this case, unlike a competitive bid, low price is not the only factor. Award is made to the highest rated and ranked respondent in an RFP. An RFQ is a method used to solicit qualifications from companies who possess a high degree of technical expertise and knowledge in specific discipline. The city will pre-qualify companies to build what we call a vendor pool to respond to future task orders, individual projects under a larger contract. Evaluation and selection is based on qualifications and technical competence of that company. For architectural and engineering, or what we call A&E RFQs, there's no cost proposal. The fee schedule for that is later negotiated as part of the larger master agreement. And most commonly used for A&E design contracts is the RFQ, and then certain consulting categories. Job order contracts. Job order contracts are a construction contract that is competitively bid. It has a firm fixed price and indefinite quantity contract, and it's designed for each department's construction program. This is a method used to solicit qualifications from companies who possess a high degree of technical expertise and knowledge in specific projects. Is used to accomplish what we call small to medium-sized construction projects, not our larger construction projects. Instead of bidding every small or medium construction job order and developing plans and technical specifications, the departments will use the JOC. In the JOC is based on a construction task order catalog that's already designed, and the vendor will bid on that contract an adjustment factor. Awarded to the general contractor offering the most favorable adjustment factor against the price book. The adjustment factors are based on work performed during normal working hours and then work performed other than normal working hours. Those are the two adjustment factors. The value of the actual job contract depends upon what the department needs and the budget that they have. Economic disclosure statements. In a solicitation, you will always see a request for the economic disclosure statements. The economic disclosure statements ask questions of the vendor that helps the city determine whether or not, number one, you're eligible to do business with the city, or if you have been debarred by the city, or if there's other things that would prevent the city from doing business with you or making you a candidate that is not responsible. Online completion of the EDS is mandatory for most of our solicitations. If it's not, you will be told if you can submit a paper EDS. In addition to the applicant applying for the contract, any legal entity that owns more than 7.5% interest, whether it's a direct interest or indirect interest in the applicant, has to also file an EDS. Certification. The city has 6 types of certification, And as I previously stated, certification is a workshop by itself. There's a lot involved with the certification process, how to become certified with the city, the different types of certifications. You can see MBE is minority-owned business enterprise. WBE is women-owned business enterprise. We have business enterprise owned by people with disabilities, disadvantaged business enterprises, airport concession disadvantaged business enterprises, veteran-owned business enterprises. Basically, to be eligible for these things is one consistent rule of thumb or theme, and that is businesses have to be at least 51% owned and controlled by a qualifying minority, women, veteran, individual with disability, or disadvantaged individual. Businesses also have to be small, and you have to be independent, and you have to be viable. These are the basic requirements. MBE, WBE, or DBE participation. There's two ordinance sections, 292420, which deals with minority-owned and women-owned, 292650, which deals with women-owned business enterprise procurement for construction. The 292420 is for non-construction. And for disadvantaged businesses, that's a federal regulation. That's 49 CFR Part 26 of the Code of Federal Regulations, which governs that certification. Commercially useful function. The City of Chicago Department of Procurement Services counts MBE, WBE, DBE expenditures towards those goals only if the MBE, WBE, DBE is performing a commercially useful function. So what is a commercially useful function? A commercially useful function means that the MBE, WBE, or DBE has to be responsible for the execution of a very distinct element of the contract of work, which is carried out by actually performing that. They have to manage it. They have to supervise it. It can be fulfilled with responsibilities as a joint venture. When you see MBE, WBE requirements in a contract, usually in non-construction contracts, you will see goals of 25% MBE, 5% WBE. In construction contracts, you will see 26% MBE, 6% WBE. Sometimes those percentages will change based on the department's understanding of those MBE, WBE, or DBE that's actually available to perform the services under the contract. But any reduction in those contract goal amounts has to go through the compliance unit and procurement services. A contractor shall not be entitled to a reduction or waiver of MBE or WBE goals during the performance of the contract after substantial completion of the contract or at the time of contract closeout, unless the contractor in writing makes a request to the CPO for a waiver or a reduction. A contractor seeking a waiver or reduction of the MBE and or WBE goals must demonstrate to the satisfaction of the CPO that it has made good faith efforts to meet its MBE and WBE utilization goals. This is very important because the city's goal is to bring on more minority businesses, more women businesses, more businesses with people that are disadvantaged. So we expect that our prime contractors meet those goals. When it says you have to make a good faith effort, that means that you will have had to reach out to these entities and prove to us that you've reached out to these entities, that you've contacted our assist agencies, and you have tried to find people to perform these services under the contract. That's the only way that a waiver or a reduction will even be considered. Contract monitoring and compliance. We have a unit, our compliance unit, that actually monitors whether or not these compliance goals are being met under the contract. They also make sure we ensure that the Chicago Residency Ordinance required and equal employment opportunity commitments are performed under the contract. You will see the Chicago Residency Ordinance and construction contracts estimated at $100,000 or more that are funded by the City of Chicago. What this residency ordinance requires is that 50% of the total work hours have to be performed by actual residents of the city of Chicago. 7.5% of the total work hours have to be performed by project area residents. The solicitation itself will show you what the project area limitations are. Our equal employment opportunity is for the purpose of promoting equality of opportunity. This is for minorities. This is for female personnel. All of this is on city-funded construction projects. And we have what we call an award criteria determination on those construction projects. It's based on a canvassing formula that's inserted into the contract. And this canvassing formula is to invite to propose the minority and female employee utilization goals. There is a cap in the contract, but that's only for canvassing purposes. We do encourage the vendors to utilize more than what the cap allows in the contract. The prime can be, the way you can achieve compliance is that the prime can be an MBE, WBE, or DBE. You can joint venture with an MBE, WBE, or DBE. You can subcontract the work out, a portion of the work out, to the MBE, WBEs, or DBEs. You can purchase materials that are used in the performance of the contract from one or more MBE, WBE, or DBE. But there must be direct participation. Reporting requirements. The prime contractor is responsible for submitting monthly subcontractor payment certification forms, weekly certified payrolls, and waivers of lien. We do keep up with whether, through our system, with whether or not your subcontractors are being paid. The contract does require that subcontractors be paid within a certain amount of time. I believe it's 7 days. So we do keep up with these things. We have programs and bid incentives. There are many programs. There are many bid incentives, and that is also a separate session. But just so you can be aware, some of our programs, we have small business initiative construction programs. We have our mid-sized business initiative construction program. We have a non-construction mid-sized business initiative program, our diversity credit program, our target market program, which are non-construction only. The target market program contracts are solicited only to MBE, WBE, DBE. That's in the target market program. We have our mentor protege program, where our prime contractors or their subcontractors can mentor others during the performance of the contract, so that they can learn ways where they can build their businesses, establish capital, and they can reach the level of becoming a prime contractor if they're currently a very small business. We have our MBE, WBE phase graduation program. That's very important. You start off as an MBE, WBE. You're a small business. Eventually, you reach the level where you can graduate. They phase you out of that program. They don't immediately just throw you out. Bid incentives. We have our veteran-owned business enterprise, small local business, veteran-owned subcontractor utilization, business enterprises for people with disabilities. We have incentives for city-based manufacturers, city-based businesses. We have apprentice utilization. We want to use the ex-offenders. We want to reintegrate them back into the communities and have job opportunities. Alternatively powered vehicles. Our mentor protege program allows for business incentive, project area subcontractor utilization, equal employment opportunity, and we have incentives to encourage utilization of MBE, WBEs. When there are contracts with no stated goals, the 25 and 5, the 26 and 6, or some other alternate firm, alternate percentages, when we don't have stated goals, we always still encourage our vendors to utilize MBEs and WBEs. Our website, on Procurement's website, you can find contracts that have been awarded. You can find modifications to those contracts, any payments made to vendors, any bid tabulations. All of our weekly bid opportunities will be on there. You can search the MBE, WBE directory. You can look at the bid incentives, the regulations to those incentives, and any other policies that DPS may have would be on our website. That's cityofchicago.org/procurement. We are on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter. Our sessions are on YouTube and our DPS website. I will open the floor up for questions. I know that was a lot of information. Hopefully, I can answer whatever questions that you have. If I cannot answer it at this time, you can always email me. I did leave my card, so it's kind of lengthy, but I'll spell it out. It's BRYTTA NN, N as in Nancy, thank you. I as in igloo, E as in egg, dot, M as in man, A as in apple, S as in Sam, O as in octopus, N as in Nancy, at cityofchicago.org. It's B as in Bob, R as in rabbit, Y as in yo-yo, T as in Tom, T as in Tom, A as in apple, N as in Nancy, N as in Nancy, I as in igloo, and E as in egg. Brittany.Mason at cityofchicago.org. Yes.
My question is, so Mayor Lightfoot has said that she wants more LGBTQ certified businesses, so that's not mentioned in here. Will that be something that's a priority in the future?
Yes, she did mention LGBTQ certification. There is currently not a certification program for that, but the mayor's office and procurement services is currently in discussion on that matter. Any other questions?
Is there a certain amount for small business insurance that we should hold?
I don't think it's an exact amount. You mean, there's certain, under the regulations, there are certain requirements for small businesses. I don't think it deals with specific insurance amounts, but I could get back to you on that question.
Are all bids subcontractor friendly?
All competitive bids, provided that there's MBWBEs or DBEs that can perform the services under the contract, will have stated goals. So yes, they would be subcontractor friendly. Again, if the contract doesn't have stated goals, it's still subcontractor friendly because we're going to encourage that entity to utilize those MBWBE and DBEs, if that's your question.
I got a few. Where do you bid for construction opportunities for the airport?
Is the question, when do you bid for where? The process is still the same for construction opportunities at the airport. Bid in bond room. You check DPS's website to see what solicitations are currently available for bid. And since we're moving towards e-procurement, most likely it will be through e-procurement in the iSupplier system. Said you had many, or a few.
Well, you answered some. What is Section 310 for contractors?
I'm not sure.
I was
What's
told that Section 3 maybe? I think that's what, yeah, Section 3 contractors. Have you ever heard of that?
I have not, so I'll have to look into that and get back to you. You can leave your information with me, and I will definitely get back to you.
The question related with the bid submittal. So you are asking for about 10% of contract amount to be submit the bounds?
If there is a bid bond or deposit required, it will not be more than that amount. Yes.
Well, I want to piggyback off of what he said. So if you have a $100,000 contract and it's a bid deposit that's required, is it a percentage of that, or are you saying that it can be up to that $100,000 contract?
The actual bid amounts, if there's a deposit required or a bid bond required in the contract, it will state it in your solicitation document. It will tell you the exact amount. Any other questions?
Are there some bids that you don't have to put a deposit down for?
Yes. I can't tell you a specific type, but the solicitation document will tell you whether or not a bid deposit is required.
And then my next question is, after you do the bidding process and everything, how soon are you notified that like you've got the bid?
Well, the previous slide stated that on the bid opening date, on that very date, is when they actually open your bids and read them out loud. And within 24 hours, that's when those tabulations are posted. From that point on, once they've determined that it's responsive, they're going to go through the documents and determine responsibility. There's no exact time frame at that point when you will be told when contract is awarded.
Do they send you like some type of email or anything? Like if you're like, are you saying like if you're like down here in this very room, like when they read them out and everything?
No, you will know if your bid has been accepted, especially in e-procurement, because it will say that your bid has been accepted. And then when you see the tabulations, you will know which one is your bid. They will send you correspondence if your contract has been, if the city has agreed to award you a contract.
For smaller construction companies that are new to doing business with the city of Chicago, how do we get underneath the larger companies to get a smaller percentage of their larger contracts? So, for example, if it's a large construction company that may have a $1 million contract, how do smaller companies come up underneath them to get a percentage of it?
Well, you could reach out to Procurement Services. You can actually talk to Jackie and get in contact with our assist agencies. The purpose of the assist agencies is to help different contractors or smaller contractors link up with larger contractors on a contract. Huh? Jacqueline Umbles. I believe it's Jacqueline.umbles@cityofchicago.org. Her first name is J as in jam, A as in apple, C as in cat, Q, U as in umbrella, E as in egg, L as in lamb, I as in igloo, N as in Nancy, E as in egg. Umbles, U as in umbrella, M as in man, B as in Bob, L as in leg, E as in egg, S as in Sam, at cityofchicago.org. Yes, Jacqueline.umbles@cityofchicago.org. And I can confirm that. Let me see. And that is the email address that I gave you. I confirmed this is the email address. Assist agencies are key. Assist agencies are included in the contracts as well, so that the primes are aware of who those agencies are.
So is the economic disclosure statements, is that like the records of the vendors of how they did on previous jobs and everything?
No, the economic disclosure statements is going to ask you what's your name, what type of entity are you, what's your tax identification number, what contract is this involving. It asks questions again that deal with eligibility to do business with the city, whether you have any debt that you owe the city, whether you have any legal issues with government in which, you were found dealing with some fraud or some embezzlement or any types of issues in the contracting process. So those are the types of things that it asks. Plus some, that's not all. So basically, that's the city's insight into your business and anything that your business has been involved in to determine, it goes into the determination of responsibility or if we could even do business with you at all.
For networking purposes, is it good to reach out to the aldermen to see what work they may have for construction purposes in their ward?
Aldermen are always a good start. Aldermen should be aware of the Department of Procurement and services that they provide. They should work closely with all city departments so that they're knowledgeable about programs. They're knowledgeable about contracts and things like that. Obviously, the solicitation process, that's a closed process when they're developing the solicitation. It's not known to the public until it has actually been advertised. So no, your alderman should not be privy to that information because it's fair, it's open, and it's competitive. But aldermen are a good start in understanding to direct you to where you could find, like you can go on DPS's website, but your alderman should also know that to say anything that the city has a need for is in our buying book or it's on the city's website to let you know what they're currently advertising for. They should know to direct you to procurement if you want to be certified. So they should have knowledge of these types of things. Aldermen should be a good place to start.
For the MBE, do your company have to be established for a certain amount of time before you are able to get that award? Because when I went online and tried the application process and everything, it asked me questions like business income and all that stuff. By me being like a new business, just starting out and everything, like I don't really have like, any income or anything like that for my business yet.
It's not a length of time that you have to have been in business, but they do want to make sure that you're a viable company, that you're independent, because you have to stand on your own leg even as a small business. And that's why you meet those basic requirements like 51% owned by a minority. You're independent. You're viable. You can't really have somebody carrying you the whole way and saying, no, I own my own business. So that's why they ask those questions, to make sure you can stand on your own leg.
My company is WBE, MBE, and DBE. So when you said graduation program, so when I graduate from these two, am I still in the DBE, or all of it fades out as, like you said, as it goes on?
So with those small businesses, the minority and DBE program, you will graduate and phase out. that doesn't mean you're no longer certified as a minority business, but you will phase out of that particular program because you've reached certain income levels and things like that. Yeah. No other questions? Well, thank you for coming out.
And if there are no other questions, take a few minutes and fill out the evaluation. Feel free to put it on the desk. And we thank Ms. Brittany Mason